Welcome back. My name is Dr. Carl Baird, and today I'm going to show you how to do a kettlebell swing. So the kettlebell swing is one of the best exercises to build metabolic health, but with that being said, it's also one that has a higher potential for injury. So before we get started practicing, it's important that we have a few things down. So the things I really want to make sure that you have an understanding of is one, how to do a hip hinge. So this is a hinging movement. And two, how to keep a neutral spine. You're going to need to keep a neutral spine throughout this movement to protect your joints. So if those are new terms for you, I'll put some resources down below to show you how to hip hinge and how to keep a neutral spine. And honestly, those are going to be the most important things to keep in mind while you're doing this movement. Now, the other thing to keep in mind before we get started is how to pick a weight. What weight should you start at? Now, when I teach people this movement, it kind of makes sense that you want to start with the lightest weight as you're learning this movement because it's the safest. But what I've found when you're trying to teach the kettlebell swing is if you go too light enough that you can just kind of lift the weight up with your arms, you don't get a practice using that hip thrust to really build momentum to get the weight up. So I actually like to start people with a kind of like medium lightweight, heavy enough that you can't just lift it with your arms, but light enough that you're not going to hurt yourself if kind of something goes wrong while you're practicing. So to teach you how to do this movement, I'm going to start with no weight and kind of talk you through the movement. Again, it's a harder one to control. You can't really slow it down once you get into the movement. So let's start with no weight. So the movement, you're going to start with that hip hinge. So that's why this movement's so important, because it is a hip hinge movement. This is the bottom of the movement here. Here is where I would have my weight. Now to get the weight up, we want to shoot our hips forward. So this is kind of the movement from the hip hinge, shoot the hips forward, and that's going to create some power to generate the momentum that's going to get the weight up. And that's how you can really get to heavier weights, is generating that power and that momentum from the hips and not necessarily your arms. So from your bottom of your hip hinge here, you're going to shoot those hips forward. That's going to bring the weight up. There are different variations, but for our purposes, the highest we need to go, I like to think arms parallel to the ground. We don't need to do these initially, especially if we're just learning the movement. Now the next thing that we have to do is control the weight on the way down. So you get it to the top, the weight's going to start to come down. This is where you shift back into that hip hinge as the weight goes between your legs. And this is where that neutral spine comes really important. So we want to maintain this neutral spine and not let the weight kind of pull us forward. This is one of the more common mistakes that you'll see people make at the bottom. They really round at the low back, which puts a lot of pressure on that lower back. So again, the movement is hinge, shoot the hips forward, get the weight parallel, and then as the weight drops, you get back into that hip hinge, keep the neutral spine, and kind of use your hamstrings to stop the movement, and repeat. So that's how you do it with no weight. I'll show you how to do it with weight. The first thing when you're picking up the weight is kind of how far to stand back. When you take courses on this, they'll have you stand a little bit further back, so you're reaching out for the weight here, and that's going to allow you to kind of get into your swing a little bit easier. So grabbing the weight from a little bit further back, you're just going to pull it straight back into your swing, shoot the hips forward, get the weight up. So again, I'm shooting my hips forward to get that weight up, keeping that neutral spine at the bottom. So there you have it. That is how you perform the kettlebell swing. Again, be careful with this one, but have fun with it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to read them, happy to respond to them to make sure you can get these kettlebell swings and safely do them without injuring your joints. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, it's Dr. Baird here. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page to catch all our videos designed to help you build the strength and confidence to live active, healthy, and happy lives. You won't find it anywhere else.